In this edition of Southern Newsweek, frustration from Dunedin police, they're angry the Don't Drink and Drive message is being ignored. A safety message from firefighters after a Dunedin home is gutted by fire, and praise for our local tourism industry as the government outlines plans for the next 10 years. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. Too many locals are driving while drunk despite the well-known risks and consequences. That's according to police who've just apprehended more than a dozen intoxicated drivers in the city. And they say it's putting all residents at risk.
Local police are frustrated, having just caught 17 drink drivers on city streets. And although more than 1,600 were processed at weekend checkpoints, police say that's 17 drink drivers too many.
We picked up a range of different people, ages, occupations. There certainly wasn't one theme or trend about those apprehended. It just happened to be a number of different people throughout Dunedin that chose to drink and drive and make those stupid errors.
All were over the new drink driving limit of 250 micrograms of alcohol per litre of breath. The highest recording 935 micrograms, more than double the old limit. Aitken says local incidents of drink driving dropped off when the new legislation came in, but residents are slipping into old habits.
It would appear that there's a bit of complacency now, and people are now choosing to take some risks and hope to get home with some alcohol on board. So really disappointed.
Officers are committed to curbing local incidents of drink driving. They say there's no justification for it and no room for compromise when lives are at stake.
With the lowered limits down at 250, the message is if you've had something to drink, don't drive, because you're potentially putting yourself in a position where you're going to be over the limit. So there is no excuse. There's no, maybe I'm going to be okay. If you've had a drink, don't drive.
Police see firsthand the trauma caused by intoxicated drivers, and they'll continue to set up checkpoints to prevent further crashes. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
Local opposition to the government's latest international trade agreement is stronger than ever. More than 2,000 people have taken to the central city to protest the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, and they're committed to fighting the deal for as long as it takes.
Just under 2,500 protesters filled Dunedin's CBD, opposing the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which they say is the biggest issue facing New Zealand at the moment.
For now, this is the main thing we need to worry about.
I think it's one of the biggest issues facing the world at the moment.
Absolutely. I think this is the biggest issue at the moment because it has, from what I know, has some pretty major implications on what happens to us as a country.
And they're concerned for a whole host of reasons, from secrecy to corporate privatisation and the cost of medicine.
What the TPPA represents is almost like a corporate overruling, which will take over the sovereignty of the nations which sign up to it.
It's a bill that has been drafted in secret predominantly, and the only thing that we know about it is what's been leaked.
That gives the people no power, and there's just corporate greed that's trying to get to the top, benefit themselves.
Everything that I've read about it, it seems to have some pretty big implications for the sovereignty of our country.
Protest organiser Jen Olsen says there's significance to the timing of this protest, the fourth of its kind in Dunedin.
It follows on from the last meeting of the ministers in Hawaii, where, as you know, they failed to reach agreement, and our message today to the government is TPPA, walk away.
She's confident protests are making a difference towards the government's attitude on the TPPA, and says that's the intention, with more than 20 simultaneous rallies around the country.
Dunedin has done us proud.
And residents are poised for the next gathering, dependent on the government's next move. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
4 South Dunedin residents are homeless after a fire gutted 2 flats in the middle of the night. It's believed a heater was the cause and there were no working smoke alarms in either home. And that's prompting a safety message from firefighters.
The charred remains of 2 South Dunedin flats inside what was a historic Cutton Street townhouse. 4 fire crews attended to the blaze just before 1 a.m. It's believed the occupants used a fan heater to warm up bedding, and they've lost everything as a result.
The house has been totally gutted, and in fact the structural integrity of the place has been challenged, and it will be, I would imagine, demolished.
No one was injured in the fire, all 4 occupants escaping into the street. Fire safety investigators are completing their assessment of the property, making sure there's no way the remains can flare up.
Very windy last night, very windy conditions, so that assisted in the fire being ventilated and blown right through the house.
Voigt says this case raises several safety issues. Heaters shouldn't be placed anywhere near bedding or other household items. Working smoke alarms should be installed, and if fires occur, people should try to contain them if it's safe to do so.
Doesn't sound like any doors were shut on the way out. Always a good idea to, if you have a fire in your house, to shut the doors if it's safe to do so, and that will save some of the property.
He's pleased with how the 16-odd firefighters worked to control the blaze, considering the windy conditions and threats to nearby properties, and hopes all Dunedin residents take stock to protect themselves.
Smoke alarms save lives, yes, definitely. They're the nose that works for you when your nose isn't working, and they'll give you early detection and let you know to get out of the house.
A small cost for a priceless saving. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
Local police and customs officers are cracking down on the importation of illegal drugs by university students. Their combined operation has already seen an 18-year-old local man arrested, and others are being warned of the potential consequences as property is seized for evidence.
The student quarter is the latest area of concern in a multi-agency crackdown on the importation of illegal drugs. 3 search warrants have been executed in Castle Street by Dunedin Police and New Zealand Customs officers, who have made a further raid in Green Island. Chief Customs Officer Kirk McPherson says it's in response to the discovery of several packages of illegal drugs bound for Dunedin.
There was one particular address that we had several imports coming to. We contact the police and speak to them about it and see if the address is known to them, if the residence is known to them, and then we work together on an operation.
The operation's already been touted as a success with the arrest of an 18-year-old man for selling cannabis. Police say further charges may be laid as seized computers and cell phones are being tested to ascertain if they've been used for drug importation. And while Dunedin's the focus at the moment, McPherson says this isn't a localised issue.
It's a nationwide problem, but it's big in the student areas, the Palmerston North type areas, Dunedin, the big universities causing us problems.
Cannabis and ecstasy are the main drugs being brought into the city, although they're not the only ones. Several Class A drugs such as methamphetamine, cocaine and LSD are also being imported. And McPherson says it's students in particular who are getting involved through the internet.
I think it's because the students think at that age they're invincible. It's easy to order it over the net and they're safe because they're not going to the gang addresses, buying it from gang members. You order it at home, you press send on your computer and it arrives in the mail. So it seems like safe. So I think students get into it quite a bit for that.
Customs and police want the recent raids to serve as a warning to students. The importation and sale of illegal drugs will lead to jail. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
The government is praising local initiatives to boost tourism. Associate Tourism Minister Paulette Bennett was in town outlining priorities for the next decade, and she says the creation of Enterprise Dunedin is a huge positive for the city.
Picking the brain of a prominent politician. University students quiz Cabinet Minister Paula Bennett during her visit to the Tourism Department on campus. She's in Dunedin to discuss the tourism sector and praises the creation of Enterprise Dunedin as a great move.
I think it's important that the Mayor and the councillors have set up Enterprise Dunedin, that one place where you can go that's looking at how you attract people here, the kind of experience they're having, what they're spending. It needs that kind of regional perspective.
Bennett says Dunedin's tourism sector is doing well, and students like these are the key to ensuring that continues. She says research is crucial for the recognition of tourism trends, and one student's pleased the government's taking advantage of big industry as cruise ship tourism and technology initiatives expand.
I think it's really interesting to see that they're considering so many different avenues for tourism development, that they're looking at it from a policy and an infrastructure and a employment, recruitment and retention perspective. It really gives me a lot of hope for increased stability within the tourism development.
Bennett says tourism in Otago has a distinctly personal touch, and locals play a big part in giving visitors a positive experience. She says the government's now making domestic tourism a priority, encouraging Kiwis to explore their own backyard.
We've had a percentage increase already, actually 1.3% decrease in international, but a huge increase in those travelling domestically, so overall around a 6% increase, and we'd like to see that continue.
Bennett's reaffirmed the government's commitment to growing tourism, including within Dunedin. She says the city helps to attract foreigners to New Zealand, stimulating crucial economic growth. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a startling historic find from the ancient world at Otago Museum, and the DCC is developing new regulations for drone operators as they fill our skies. Welcome back. A priceless tablet featuring an inscription to an ancient king has been discovered at Otago Museum. The stone tablet was already catalogued by staff, but its true significance has only just come to light. And it means Dunedin boasts one of only a few such artefacts in the world.
Otago Museum is home to more than 100 stone tablets, many of them thousands of years old. They've been analysed by researchers as part of an Australasia-wide project. And while most are on the more mundane side, showing tax transactions and livestock movements, one has stood out. It's from ancient Sumerian king Hashmagalshu.
There's 5 known pieces similar to it in world collections. There's 3 that we know about that have a very similar inscription to it, and they're all held in collections in the US, so the Met in New York, Yale, places like that.
The tablet features Sumerian characters and reads, "A gift of Hashmagalshu, a stone slab of the Eker for Enlil, his king." Reeves says it provides a fascinating insight into ancient life in what's now the Middle East, and highlights the importance of an ancient temple.
Eker, it's called, is sort of like the Mount Olympus of ancient Sumeria, so a very important temple. And what he's done, I guess, by rebuilding it, is making an offering to that god, kind of sealing his place as the rightful king of the area.
Reeves says the museum has a wide range of artefacts around the same age as the tablet, about 3,500 years old. But the discovery of this one's significance is especially important, as it emphasises how many treasures are held in the region.
It's not a case of stumbling on it in the corner of a storeroom. We knew where it was. It had an accession number and a record in our database. But until we have those layers of information with the artefacts, their significance doesn't exactly become apparent.
There's no plan to put the tablet on display just yet, but there is potential for the public to get a look at the treasure in the future. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
The playground of a local primary school is about to undergo a $27,000 transformation. Pupils have been involved in the design process for the project, which has been years in the making. And with the last bit of community funding secured, work's finally set to begin.
The 23 pupils of St Mary's Kaikarai will soon have brand new playground equipment to swing on. That's thanks to a number of community grants and school fundraisers over the past 18 months. And Principal Richard Duffy is pleased with the combined effort of everyone involved.
We consulted our community to see what the need was, and secondly we sort of broke down and thought, what can the PTA do? And through the school and the PTA, they raised as much money as they could, and just the grants on top of it, they wouldn't expect to receive as much, but I think because it's used a lot by the community, we're really heavily supported by the funding agency, so it's superb.
Duffy says staff have worked tirelessly to raise as much money as possible over the fundraising period. And now, with the hard yards done, they have a sizable chunk to play with.
Our PTA worked really hard to get some funds together. They raised a fair amount of money in a quick amount of time, and grants supported us the rest. So we're absolutely thrilled to have access to $27,000 as we stand to build a fort and and adjoining slide, so it's wonderful.
Duffy's particularly looking forward to the new slide, coming at a cost of $14,000. It's currently being fabricated in central Otago, but work on site will be undertaken by local firm AJ Grant. And the pupils, who are set to benefit most from the new facility, have also had a hand in its design.
Well, I think for the pupils it's wonderful because initially they built wee Lego typecasts of what it would be like. So to see probably that something they probably produced as a group is going to turn out is very exciting for them. I think some of the younger ones can't quite believe. They look up on the bank and open their mouths and think, well, what's he on about? But I think when it's here they'll be very happy.
Contractors are scheduled to start work on site in early spring, meaning these guys won't have to wait too much longer for something new to play on. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
The City Council is developing a new process to deal with people wanting to fly drones in public. Council staff are seeing an influx of requests from residents seeking permission to fly drones under new regulations. And the process has enthusiasts scratching their heads.
Dunedin's drone and model aircraft scene is thriving. Membership's booming at the city's main club as enthusiasts take to the skies. But new rules from the Civil Aviation Authority are making the hobby tough, says local model aircraft shop owner Juan Gaspar.
The confusion's obviously the biggest problem. Obviously the rules are quite long and quite specific for those wanting to actually make a commercial enterprise out of drone flying, camera work.
New rules mean commercial drone operators need permission from the Civil Aviation Authority to fly, and hobbyists need approval from landowners. So council staff are getting regular requests from residents wanting to fly drones in public, and the process is leaving many perplexed.
We're getting inundated with calls and people asking us where they stand now with their model aircraft. You know, there's a lot of people that have them in this town, mainly small ones, and a lot of people that just want to fly with their kids.
The council's responding to requests on a case-by-case basis, and staff hope a standard permission process will provide consistency. Gaspar's keen to see blanket approval for public spaces granted, and he urges drone and model aircraft users to apply common sense and stick to the fundamental rules of flying.
It's still don't fly over people, don't fly at night time, don't fly over 400 feet, don't fly within 4 k's of an airport, and simple stuff, really basic stuff.
It's not known when the council's streamlined process will be finalised, but Gaspar says the DCC's already proving helpful when getting permissions, as local hobbyists come to grips with new rules. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
And just ahead on Southern Newsweek, the University of Otago is putting the spotlight on how to live more sustainably, and we explain why giant bubbles marked the start of Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Week. Welcome back. University of Otago students are taking a break from their books to try their hand at gardening. It's Sustainability Week on campus, aimed at raising awareness of environmental and social issues. And for one group, it's a chance to show off the sustainable practices used year-round.
Gathering up the fruits of their labour. Members of the Students for Environmental Action group are taking part in a garden working bee on campus. It's part of the university's annual Sustainability Week program. And Group President Lizzie Sharp says she's seeing more and more students become environmentally aware and turning that interest into action.
There's a lot more word out on the street about growing your own produce and getting involved with clubs like Students for Environmental Action. So our numbers have been steadily increasing over the last year, which is awesome.
During the week, the group is also holding a workshop to encourage people to ditch plastic and sew their own tote bags, giving people a small, easy way to make a difference, which Sharp hopes kickstarts a further interest in making sustainable choices.
Personally, I think every week should be Sustainability Week, but for the general public, I think it's a great opportunity to spread the word and encourage everyone just to do their part, because of course every bit counts when we're trying to help Mother Earth and surviving and making her as healthy as possible.
For these volunteers, their work isn't limited to just 1 week of the year, with twice weekly working bees to maintain the garden. And with help from the Property Services Division at the University of Otago, as well as the Students' Association, Sharp says there's plenty of room for growth, with some brand new equipment on the way.
The university is very helpful. OUSA will give us opportunities to apply for grants, which is super helpful when we need more tools and a shed, and we're going to get a tunnel house so we can grow tomatoes, which are a little bit more sensitive to the cold Dunedin weather. So yeah, they're really supportive, and if we even need help, they're there within a minute. So they're really helpful.
Sharp says she's pleased to see the week inspiring and encouraging other students to live more sustainably. And although the event is just a week long, she's confident any lessons learned will be preserved. Ruby McAndrew, 39 Dunedin News.
A sea lion has ventured close to the city, giving residents an opportunity to watch it sunbathing at the top of the harbour. The sea lion spent the morning lying in the sun on a jetty in front of the old Custom House restaurant. It attracted a few onlookers and happily posed for photographs. Local Department of Conservation rangers were called to monitor the animal. New Zealand sea lions have just been listed as endangered. They're one of the rarest species of sea lions in the world and mostly live around the local coastline. People are urged to keep a respectful distance from them, particularly when walking dogs. Cross-country running is an expanding sport in the city, thanks in part to a series of winter races. The Athletics Otago program has just concluded with a drizzly run through Rotary Park, and now the organisation's looking to further encourage young participants.
Despite the winter weather, Dunedin's young runners are once again pushing their limits, with dozens of kids involved in a cross-country race at Rotary Park, battling against steep uphill and downhill sections and areas dense with trees. The conclusion of Athletics Otago's Kids Cross-Country series, aimed at increasing activity among youngsters.
And also to give them some experience at running in races as a lead up to the primary school cross countries that all the regions have, leading towards the Otago primary school and intermediate school cross country.
This is the fourth of these events, held over the past few months, open to pupils from the area's primary and intermediate schools. Hundreds have competed in the series, itself inspired by similar runs in Wellington.
The events have been really successful. We've had roughly from about 30 to 50 children competing at each one. Some have been repeat children, so some children have competed in all four, and we've had new children come along to each one as well.
Knox says the series has been a great chance to introduce local kids to what's in their backyards. With so many suitable running spots in the city, she's pleased to introduce kids to some lesser known areas. And with the programme's success, attention's turning to next year as organisers look to grow cross-country's popularity.
It does have a lot of participation in the primary school area and the intermediate schools at their school cross countries. In the Harrier Club scene, it's going okay as well, and we're doing our best to increase involvement.
Knox says Athletics Otago is looking at introducing a team-based cross-country event in 2016. And she's on the lookout for new clubs to help run more of these events, with an eye to expand into Mosgiel, all to help local school pupils get active. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
And finally, a bit of fun at the city's railway station has raised awareness about a serious condition. Giant bubbles were the main attraction at the popular tourist spot. The showcase marked the start of Cystic Fibrosis Awareness Week. Bubbles are symbolic because people with the disease struggle to blow bubbles as a result of poor lung function. The Cystic Fibrosis Otago branch will also hold a street appeal to raise money for nebuliser units. They're each worth about $1,200 and help with treatment. Some money may also be used as heating grants for locals with cystic fibrosis. And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Please do visit our website dunedintv.co.nz, where you can download Southern Newsweek and watch individual clips of 39 Dunedin News or webcast the show. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.